Most of the men who became Wild West Outlaws were dead before they turned 30, not in a blaze of glory, not on their own terms, shot in the dark, hung from a rope, or rotting in a cell too small to lie down in. The movies never told you that part. This is what that life actually was. The American frontier in the 1860s and 1870s was not an adventure. It was an economic catastrophe wearing the costume of one. The Civil War ended in 1865 and left hundreds of thousands of men, many of them Confederate veterans, with no land, no wages, no future. They drifted west. They took cattle drive work for $3 a week under a sun that cracked leather and blistered skin. They watched railroad companies seize the land they had been farming for years, backed by lawyers they could never afford to fight. The system wasn't broken for these men. It was working exactly as designed, and they were on the wrong end of it. That is where the outlaw is born. Not in some dim saloon with a twitch of his gun hand, but in a field, in a courtroom, in a letter from a bank. A man who has watched every legal door close on him and decides to walk through a different one entirely. Jesse James was 16 when he rode with Confederate guerrillas during the war, participating in some of the bloodiest irregular combat on the frontier. By the time the war ended, he had been shot, was considered a wanted man in the eyes of Union authorities, and had no path back to normal life. On February 13, 1866, the James Younger Gang robbed the Clay County Savings Association Bank in Liberty, Missouri, making off with over $60,000 in cash and bonds in what became the first daylight bank robbery during peacetime in American history. As they rode out, gunfire erupted, and a 17-year-old bystander was killed in the street. Jesse was 18 years old. Butch Cassidy was born Robert Leroy Parker in 1866 to a family of devout Mormon pioneers in Utah, one of 13 children. As a teenager, he worked ranch jobs to help his family. At 13, he met a drifter and cattle rustler named Mike Cassidy, who taught him to shoot, survive, and steal. At 18, he left home, telling his mother, "There's not much here for me, no future." He drifted to Telluride, Colorado, where gold fever had turned the town into a gambling den. Within years, he was wanted across 3 states. Billy the Kid was orphaned at age 15 when his mother died of tuberculosis. His stepfather abandoned him immediately after, a boy with no money, no family, and no prospects in the New Mexico territory. His first arrest came at 16 for stealing food. His first killing came at 17 during an altercation with a blacksmith in Arizona. He died at 21. These were not men born evil. They were men born poor, at the wrong time, in the wrong place, with no margin for error and no one to catch them when they fell. Now forget what you think you know about how they lived. The robbery lasted 3 minutes on a good day. What came after lasted everything else. Imagine you are 3 weeks out of the last town. You've been riding across open territory in Oklahoma in July, and the temperature has not dropped below 90 degrees since dawn. The horse under you is showing signs of lameness in the left foreleg. You have no other horse. Your boots are too small because you took them off a man in trade, and his feet were a size smaller than yours, and the leather has opened a raw stripe across your right ankle that will not stop weeping. You stopped registering the pain somewhere around day 5. Your shirt has not been washed in 3 weeks. Your last full meal was yesterday, and it was half-cooked jackrabbit that left you doubled over behind a juniper tree for 2 hours. One hand gripping your revolver in the dirt beside you, because fires draw attention, and attention means a marshal, a bounty hunter, or worse, a group of men who saw your face on a wanted poster at the post office and decided $50 was worth a man's life. This is the actual texture of it, not the shootout. The shootout is 40 seconds. The hiding, the starving, the festering wounds, and the grinding, never switching off terror, that is the career. Outlaws rarely operated alone for long. Gangs formed out of necessity, not loyalty. Historians categorize frontier outlaws into three distinct types: those who began with cattle rustling and horse theft before graduating to banks and trains; those who were outright violent, fueled by personal trauma or political grievance; and those who lived on the fringes, sometimes viewed by locals as figures fighting corrupt institutions. Most gangs mixed all three types together in a cave with one blanket and a bottle of bad whiskey, and expected that arrangement to hold. It rarely did. The whiskey in frontier saloons was frequently adulterated with creek water, molasses, grain alcohol, and occasionally snake venom. Men drank it anyway, because the alternative was sitting sober in the dark with their own thoughts. Saloons were the one place on the frontier where a man outside the law could briefly become invisible. He was just another body at the bar, anonymous in the noise and smoke and the flat warmth of a room full of other desperate men. Saloons functioned less as dens of violence and more as places to find conversation and comfort amid an isolating life on the frontier. Outlaws understood this. They used it. They played faro, bought rounds, told stories that made people like them. Being liked was a survival strategy. But the saloon was also where it ended for most of them. Not in a dramatic showdown. A drunk mouth, a loud laugh, a stranger in the corner who recognized a face from a wanted poster pinned up at the general store. The Pinkerton Detective Agency trailed Butch Cassidy's wild bunch across the West for years, with Detective Charlie Siringo calling Cassidy the shrewdest and most daring outlaw of the present age. Siringo often disguised himself as an outlaw to infiltrate their circles. The bounty system worked not because lawmen were brilliant, but because it put a dollar value on betrayal, and betrayal was the one resource that never ran short wherever desperate men gathered. When the capture came, it was rarely clean. Frontier jails were wooden structures built by local carpenters with whatever timber was available. Iron bars were only as strong as the green wood bolts anchoring them, and that wood shrank and warped through the first winter. Billy the Kid was sentenced to hang in May 1881, but on April 28th, he killed 2 sheriff's deputies and escaped. He evaded recapture for more than 2 months before Sheriff Pat Garrett tracked him down and shot him dead on July 14th, 1881, at the age of 21. Jesse James was not caught by any lawman. He was shot in the back of the head on April 3rd, 1882, by Robert Ford, a member of his own gang, who had been secretly promised a pardon and reward money by the Missouri governor. He was 34 years old. He had been considering retiring from crime. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid eventually fled to Argentina in 1902, purchased land, and attempted to go straight. By 1906, they had returned to robbing banks and trains across South America. Cassidy's alleged death came in a shootout in Bolivia in 1908, though the exact circumstances have been disputed by historians ever since. He was 42, older than most ever got. The ones who didn't escape to another country faced the scaffold. The hanging was public. Communities traveled 20 miles to attend. Children climbed fence posts for a better view. The condemned man walked out with his hands bound, the rope placed around his neck, and then the trap dropped. A properly executed hanging required precise calculation of drop distance relative to body weight. The men performing frontier executions were sheriffs and volunteer citizens working from rough guesswork with equipment built in a hurry. Short drops were common. A short drop does not kill quickly. It takes minutes. The crowd watched. The newspapers reported it the next morning. And within a few years, the same publishers who had called for these men's deaths were selling dime novels with their faces on the cover, calling them legends. The average documented career of a frontier outlaw lasted between 3 and 7 years. The average age at death was under 30. They were young men from poor families who had watched every legitimate door close and walked through the one that was left. What came after was hunger and fear and bad boots and the specific exhaustion of a man who cannot sleep deeply because sleeping deeply gets you killed. They died in the dark, in the dirt, in wooden cells that reeked of mold and disease, or on the end of a rope in front of a crowd that had ridden 20 miles for entertainment. Somewhere out there right now, there is a cave in Wyoming where men once sheltered between raids, cold seeping through sandstone walls, the wind carrying the smell of wood smoke from the nearest town miles away. The walls of that cave are still there. The silence in it is still the same.